The morning sun rose over the human colony on Kepler 442b, painting the sky orange and pink. 15,000 people lived in the settlement called Delta 7. They had built homes, schools, and farms on this distant world. Children walked to class while parents headed to work in the mining facilities. It was a normal day, just like hundreds before it. Captain Elena Vasquez stood beside her cargo ship, the Mercy's Run. She had been bringing supplies to Delta 7 for 6 years. She knew most of the colonists by name. She watched children playing near the school and smiled. Her radio beeped. It was Director Chen, the colony's leader. "Captain, we received a message from the Galactic Council. They want us to leave within 3 days." His voice shook with worry. Elena felt her heart sink. "Why? What did we do wrong?" "They say we violated their territory. They claim all human colonies outside our solar system are illegal." Director Chen paused. "Elena, they never talked to us before. Now they're making threats." The Galactic Council controlled most of the galaxy. 17 alien species worked together to rule the stars. Earth had tried to talk to them for decades, but they always ignored human messages. So Earth built colonies anyway, far from Council space. "What does Earth say?" Elena asked. "Earth told us to stay. They said we have the right to be here." Elena looked at the peaceful colony. People were living normal lives. They were not soldiers. They had done nothing wrong. "Maybe we should think about leaving," Elena started to say. The sky exploded with light. Elena looked up and saw ships. Hundreds of alien warships appeared above the planet, filling the sky with their huge metal bodies. They were massive, each one the size of a city block. "Everyone get to the shelters!" Director Chen screamed over the radio. "This is real! Run!" Elena ran toward her ship. Around her, people were screaming and running. Parents grabbed their children. Old people tried to move faster. The colony's warning sirens screamed. The first attack hit the evacuation shuttles. The landing pad near Elena exploded. 5 shuttles that could have saved civilians turned into fireballs. The blast threw Elena to the ground. Her ears rang. Blood filled her mouth. When she stood up, the sky was raining fire. Energy beams shot down from the alien ships, hitting buildings with perfect aim. The power plant exploded. The water facility collapsed. The communication tower fell. Every important building was being destroyed. Then Elena saw something that made her blood freeze. A beam hit the elementary school. The school was built strong, designed to survive meteors and radiation. The beam went through it like paper. 300 children died in 1 second. "No," Elena whispered. "Please, no." She forced herself to run to her ship. Other people had the same idea. Dozens of colonists ran toward any ship that could fly. Elena saw the Martinez family carrying their 2 little girls. She saw old Mr. Kowalski from the farms. She saw her friends, her neighbors. "Get inside," Elena screamed. "Everyone who can reach my ship, get inside." Alien soldiers were landing now. They wore shimmering armor and carried weapons. They were called the Gentar. They were the strongest species in the Council. The soldiers started shooting immediately. They shot at everyone they saw. Delta 7 had no army. These were just families, regular people. Elena got her ship's door open and pulled people inside. 40 people. 50. Her ship was meant to carry 30, but she would take everyone she could. A Gentar soldier appeared at the landing pad. It raised its gun toward the running civilians. Elena grabbed a heavy tool from her ship and threw it. The tool hit the soldier in the head. The civilians kept running. "Come on! Hurry!" Elena pulled a young mother and her baby through the door. The woman was crying and saying thank you over and over. Director Chen was the last person to reach the ship. He was bleeding and carrying a black box. "The colony's records," he gasped. "Video of everything. Proof of what they did." Elena dragged him inside. "We have 67 people. We need to go right now." She sealed the door and ran to the cockpit. Behind her, the survivors held each other and cried. Some called out names of people who did not make it. Elena pushed her ship's engines as hard as they would go. The ship shook and groaned as it climbed into the sky. Warning lights flashed everywhere. She ignored them. Alien fighters chased them. The ship was hit again and again. Holes opened in the hull. One engine caught fire. But Elena kept climbing, kept pushing towards space. Below her, she could see Delta 7 dying. The Gentar soldiers went building to building. They were killing everyone they found. This was not a battle. This was murder. The colony's emergency shelters were being opened one by one. The Gentar pulled people out and shot them in the streets. Elena watched it all through her ship's cameras. The system recorded everything. When the Mercy's Run finally escaped into space and jumped away at light speed, Elena was shaking. Her hands trembled on the controls. Behind her, 67 survivors sat in shocked silence. Their homes were gone. Their families were dead. Director Chen came to the cockpit. His face was pale. "They're broadcasting it," he said quietly. "The Galactic Council is showing the attack to everyone. They're calling it a lesson, a warning to all humans about what happens if we don't obey." Elena stared at him. Her hands still shook. "How long to reach Earth?" 3 weeks if the ship doesn't break apart." Elena set the autopilot and turned to face him. "We'll make it, and when we get to Earth, everyone will see what the Council did. Everyone will know." She did not say what she was really thinking. 15,000 innocent people had just been murdered. Children had been killed in their school. The galaxy had just made a terrible, terrible mistake, because humanity was about to find out what happened to Delta 7, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Galactic Council thought they were teaching humans a lesson about fear and obedience. Instead, they were about to learn what happened when you murdered human children and broadcast it as entertainment. They were about to discover that humanity did not forget, and humanity did not forgive. The Mercy's Run reached Earth orbit 3 weeks later. The ship was barely holding together. 2 survivors had died from their injuries during the journey. Elena had said prayers for them before releasing their bodies into space. Earth Command sent rescue ships immediately. Within hours, the survivors were in hospitals. Elena refused medical treatment until she gave Director Chen's black box directly to Earth's leaders. She found herself in Geneva, in the command center of United Earth. The room was filled with the most powerful people on the planet. President Okonkwo sat at the head of the table. Military commanders and intelligence officers filled the other seats. They all watched in silence as the recordings from Delta 7 played on the giant screens. The footage was horrible. The children in the school, killed without warning. The systematic destruction of every escape route. The Gentar soldiers executing people who begged for mercy. The soldiers opening emergency shelters where families hid, then throwing in explosives. When the footage ended, nobody spoke. Elena saw tears on the faces of tough military officers. President Okonkwo's hands were clenched so tight, her knuckles turned white. "How many other colonies are in danger?" someone asked. "All of them," replied Admiral Chen Wu, a thin man with gray hair and cold eyes. "The Galactic Council claims authority over any human settlement outside our solar system. Delta 7 was first. More will follow." "We must negotiate," said the Secretary of State. "Open talks. Demand they answer for this crime." "They will not talk," Elena interrupted. Everyone looked at her. "I am sorry, but they will not. They ignored us for decades. Now they showed us what they think of humanity. We are insects to them. Pests they kill when we annoy them." President Okonkwo stood up. She was tall and had led Earth through the resource wars, the terrible conflicts that almost destroyed humanity before the world united under one government. She understood war and its costs. "I want options," she said quietly. All options. Admiral Chen Wu, tell us what we can do. The Admiral activated a hologram. It showed the galaxy with human space in blue and council space in red. The red was 1,000 times bigger than the blue. We have 3 choices, Admiral Chen Wu began. First, we give up. We abandon all colonies and hide in our solar system, hoping the Council leaves us alone. Second, we try diplomacy while losing more colonies. Third, we activate the Eschaton Protocol. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Elena did not know what the Eschaton Protocol was, but everyone else did, and they were scared of it. The protocol was never approved, someone objected. It is only for threats to our entire species. This is a threat to our species, Admiral Chen Wu replied. His voice was flat and emotionless. The Council has 15,000 warships. We have 300. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. They control most of the galaxy. And they just showed they will murder human civilians without hesitation. If we do nothing, humanity will be extinct in 10 years. President Okonkwo looked around the room. I call for a vote. All who support activating the Eschaton Protocol, raise your hand. Every hand went up. Some people hesitated, their hands shaking as they raised them. But in the end, every single person voted yes. God help us all, the president whispered. Then louder, Admiral, you have permission. Begin immediately. Elena was taken from the room. Nobody would tell her what the Eschaton Protocol was. She was questioned for 3 days, then given a rank in Earth's military and sent to a hospital for mental health evaluation. The doctor said she had severe trauma and should be discharged. Elena refused. I am going back. I will fight. Captain Vasquez, you have been through terrible horror. You need time to heal. There is no time, Elena said. Give me a ship. Give me weapons. Let me make them pay for what they did. 3 days later, she was assigned to a destroyer called Retribution. It was being built in Earth's orbit, one of hundreds of new ships under construction. The building pace was crazy. The shipyards worked day and night. New facilities were being built in orbit on the Moon and on Mars, but Earth went silent. Every human ambassador left Council space. Every diplomatic channel closed. Every message from the Galactic Council was ignored. Human civilian ships fled Council territory, abandoning businesses that took decades to build. The Council was confused. They expected humanity to surrender or make threats. The silence was strange. Some Council species thought humans were preparing for war, but their spies showed only defensive preparations around Earth's solar system. It looked like Earth was retreating, accepting its place as a weak minor species. They were wrong. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, the president's younger sister, was a physicist. She had spent 20 years researching weapons considered too dangerous to ever use. Antimatter bombs that could crack planets, devices that could tear apart space itself, nanomachine swarms that could consume entire fleets, biological weapons designed for specific alien species. Every proposal had been rejected as too terrible, too immoral, too dangerous. The weapons existed only as plans and computer simulations. Now Dr. Okonkwo had unlimited resources and orders to build everything. She worked in a laboratory deep under the Sahara Desert. 16 hours every day, she and her team turned theory into reality. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the footage from Delta 7, the children, the families, the deliberate cruelty. We are becoming monsters, one of her assistants said during a late-night work session. Dr. Okonkwo looked up from her calculations. Yes, she agreed, but we are becoming monsters who will make sure humanity survives. The Council killed 15,000 civilians to make a point. We are going to make our own point. Around the world, similar work happened everywhere. Weapons factories that had been closed since the resource wars came back to life. Artificial intelligence research that had been banned was given permission. Programs to create enhanced soldiers were approved. Secret technologies too expensive or dangerous to use before were greenlit. 16 billion humans united for a single purpose. It was not just the government or military. Regular people volunteered for factories, for military service, for dangerous experiments. Retired engineers came back to work. Students left school to work in weapons labs. Artists created propaganda. Musicians wrote war songs. Everyone helped. The Galactic Council watched Earth's activity and felt satisfied. The humans were scared, building defenses, preparing to hide in their home system like frightened children. It was exactly what the Council wanted. Humanity had been put in its place. 3 months passed, then 4, then 5. The Council received no communication from Earth. Human colonies outside the solar system were abandoned. It looked like total surrender. Then the Council made its mistake. They sent a fleet to claim an abandoned human colony. The fleet arrived to find the colony empty, except for mining equipment. The Council commander sent a message claiming the colony. The message never arrived. The fleet never came home. 3 days later, the silence ended. Human warships appeared at 73 locations at once, hitting Council border stations, supply depots, and communication relays. The attacks lasted exactly 47 minutes. When the human ships left, every target was completely destroyed. No survivors, no prisoners, no warning, no mercy. The Galactic Council tried to respond, but they did not understand what they faced. The human ships were different. Smaller, faster, using swarm tactics controlled by artificial intelligence, and every human ship had the same destination. They were all heading to the same place. Gentar Prime, the homeworld of the species that led the attack on Delta 7. Admiral Chen Wu sat in his command center under Geneva, watching fleet movements on holographic displays. His face showed no emotion. He had not slept in 3 days. An aide approached. "Admiral, we are receiving messages from the Council. They want to negotiate." Admiral Chen Wu looked at the footage from Delta 7 that played on one of his screens. 15,000 people. 300 children. "Send them the footage from Delta 7, he said quietly. "That is our only answer. Block all other communications." Across the galaxy, thousands of human warships moved through space, heading toward a single world. Aboard each ship, the crew watched the footage from Delta 7. They remembered, they prepared. Earth had been silent for 5 months. Now it was time to speak. And the galaxy was about to learn that humanity's silence had not been fear. It had been preparation. The storm was coming. The Gentar border station Karath 9 had protected Council space for 300 years. 12,000 personnel worked there, defended by 40 warships. The station's commander, War Leader Thesh, believed nothing could threaten it. That belief died when sensors detected 3,000 unidentified contacts appearing from faster-than-light travel all at once. "What is that?" Thesh demanded, staring at the display. The contacts were small, each barely the size of a fighter, but there were so many of them, forming a perfect sphere around the station. "Reading energy signatures matching human technology," the sensor operator reported. "War Leader, they are human ships." Thesh felt his throat sacs inflate with contempt. "Humans? Their entire fleet is less than 500 ships. This must be a sensor error." "No error, War Leader. They are powering weapons, multiple missile launches detected, thousands of missiles incoming." The station's defensive weapons activated automatically, firing lasers and particle beams at the incoming swarm. The weapons were designed to fight massive Council dreadnoughts, and they destroyed human ships easily. Dozens fell, then hundreds, but thousands remained. The human ships did not behave like any military force the Gentar had seen. They moved in perfect coordination, each ship adjusting based on what its neighbors did. When the station's weapons destroyed a cluster of ships, The survivors immediately filled the gaps, maintaining the sphere's integrity. "They are using swarm tactics," the tactical officer said, panic in his voice. "Coordinated by artificial intelligence. War leader, we cannot target them all." "Launch all fighters," Thesh commanded. "Order the fleet to engage." The station's 300 fighters launched, followed by the 40 warships that protected the station. The Gentar forces were technologically superior to anything humanity had ever fielded. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, their shields stronger. It did not matter. For every human ship the Gentar destroyed, 10 more swarmed the attacker. The human vessels were cheap and fast to build. They had minimal shields, minimal armor, minimal life support. Most were barely larger than missiles themselves, but they had powerful weapons, sophisticated AI, and they were controlled by a hive mind that processed tactical data faster than any biological crew could react. The first Gentar cruiser died when 50 human ships rammed it at once, their antimatter engines exploding on impact. The explosion vaporized the cruiser and the human ships both. The AI did not care. It had calculated that the trade was worthwhile. Within 10 minutes, half the Gentar fleet was destroyed. The human ships were dying by the hundreds, but more kept coming, emerging from faster-than-light travel in waves. The Gentar realized with growing horror that the first 3,000 ships had just been the opening wave. Thesh watched his fleet die. He had fought in 17 major battles during his career. He had studied warfare at the finest military academies. Nothing had prepared him for this. The humans were not fighting like soldiers. They were fighting like a disease, overwhelming through sheer numbers and complete disregard for their own losses. "Send a distress signal to Gentar Prime," he ordered. "Tell them the humans have gone insane. Tell them—" The station's main reactor exploded. A human ship had penetrated the defensive grid and crashed directly into the reactor core. The explosion tore Karath 9 in half. 12,000 Gentar died instantly. The human ships that remained did not celebrate. They simply jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading deeper into Council space, leaving only wreckage and silence. Similar attacks happened at 73 border stations simultaneously. The Galactic Council lost over 2 million personnel in the first hour of fighting. Human losses were worse in raw numbers, over 10,000 ships destroyed. But humanity had built the ships expecting losses. Every ship was automated or crewed by volunteers who knew they probably would not return. On the bridge of the destroyer, Retribution, Elena Vasquez watched the tactical displays with grim satisfaction. Her ship was part of the second wave, currently traveling faster than light toward inner Council territories. They would arrive in 6 hours. "We are receiving updates from the first wave's attacks," her tactical officer reported. 71 of 73 targets destroyed. 2 stations managed to send distress signals before elimination. "Good," Elena said. The word tasted like ashes in her mouth. She had become an officer on a warship designed for one purpose: killing. The Retribution carried weapons that Dr. Okonkwo's team had designed specifically for this war. Quantum disruption torpedoes that tore apart molecular bonds, nanomachine warheads that consumed ships from inside, biological agents tailored to Gentar physiology. Captain Marcus Stone commanded the Retribution. He was tall and rarely smiled. He had lost his daughter in the resource wars and had trained for 20 years for a conflict he hoped would never come. "We should expect heavy resistance when we arrive," Stone said. "The Council will be mobilizing their main fleets now. They know we are coming." "They still do not know where we are going," Elena replied. The human fleet had split into hundreds of smaller groups, each taking different routes through Council space. Some attacked military targets, some destroyed communication infrastructure. But the largest concentration of ships, nearly 500 human vessels of larger class, were all heading to one destination: Gentar Prime. The Galactic Council's emergency session was chaos. Representatives from 17 species argued about how to respond. Some wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to mobilize the full council armada. A few suggested surrender. The Gentar delegates were furious. "You see what we warned about?" War Minister Kresh hissed. "Humans are a plague. They must be exterminated before they spread." "You started this war," the Pelthian ambassador replied. The Pelthians were aquatic and had always doubted Gentar aggression. "You attacked a civilian colony without warning. What did you expect?" "We expected them to submit." Kresh slammed his appendage on the table. "Every other species understood the Council's authority. Only humans defied us. And now they are destroying our border stations," the Vrel representative added. The Vrel were insectoids who communicated through chemical signals. "Our intelligence says the human fleet numbers in the thousands. How did they build so many ships so quickly?" Nobody had an answer. The Council's spies had monitored human activity around Earth's solar system, but they had underestimated what humanity was capable of. The orbital shipyards, the lunar factories, the asteroid mining operations, all had been converted to war production at a scale the Council never imagined possible. "We need to deploy the Council Armada," Kresh insisted. "All 15,000 ships. We will crush the human fleet and then bomb Earth itself." "Where do we deploy them?" the Pelthian asked. "The humans are attacking everywhere at once. We do not know where their main force is." Deep in Gentar Military Command on Gentar Prime, Fleet Commander Vresh studied tactical displays with growing concern. The human attacks were too coordinated, too widespread. It was like fighting insects. You could kill hundreds, but thousands more appeared. "Plot all human fleet movements," she ordered. "Find the pattern. Where are they going?" The AI systems analyzed the data for 3 hours. When the results appeared, Vresh felt her blood chill. Every major concentration of human ships was moving on curved paths that avoided the Council's main military bases. They were not trying to fight the Council Armada. They were avoiding it, and they were all heading toward the galactic core, where the Council's most important worlds were located, where Gentar Prime orbited its ancient sun. "Send an emergency signal to the Hegemony Council," Vresh said. "The humans are coming here, to Gentar Prime, all of them." "How many ships?" her second-in-command asked. Vresh looked at the numbers. "At least 400 large capital ships, thousands of smaller vessels, and we estimate they have only deployed 40% of their total fleet. The rest guard Earth and human colonies." "We have the Home Defense Fleet," her second said. 2,000 of our finest warships. Gentar Prime is the most heavily defended world in the galaxy." "It will not be enough," Vresh replied quietly. She had watched recordings from the border stations. The humans were not fighting a normal war. They were fighting like cornered animals, with desperate fury. "Recall every ship we have," Vresh ordered. "Every patrol, every scout, every vessel within 10 days' travel. Pull back forces we sent to secure human colonies. Everything. Bring it all home." "Fleet Commander, that will leave outer territories undefended." "Outer territories do not matter if Gentar Prime falls," Vresh replied. "Send the recall order now." Across the galaxy, Gentar ships began the journey home. They would arrive in waves over the next 15 days. The first human ships would arrive in 10. On the Retribution, Elena stood in the observation deck, watching stars streak past as the ship traveled faster than light. She thought about Delta 7, about the children in the school, about Mr. Kowalski and his gardens, about the Martinez family and their 2 daughters. "We are about to kill billions of people," Captain Stone said, appearing beside her. "Gentar Prime has 12 billion citizens. Most are civilians." "I know," Elena replied. "Does that bother you?" Elena was quiet for a long moment. "Yes. But I will do it anyway, because they did it first, because they will do it again if we do not stop them." Stone nodded slowly. I wonder if that makes us right, or just as bad as them. I do not know, Elena admitted. I guess we will find out after. The ships continued their journey through darkness. Behind them, Earth continued building more vessels, more weapons. Ahead, Gentar Prime waited, unaware of the approaching storm. The war had begun, and humanity intended to end it in a way the galaxy would never forget. Gentar Prime had never known war. For 3,000 years, the hegemony's homeworld had been safe, protected by the largest military fleet in the galaxy. 12 billion Gentar lived on the planet in gleaming cities across 3 continents. They were artists, scientists, merchants, teachers, regular people who had built a civilization spanning 100 worlds. In the capital city of Kreshvar, scientist Thel worked in her laboratory studying quantum mechanics. She had 2 offspring at the academy nearby. Her mate Vresh worked in government archives. They were an ordinary family, living an ordinary life, unaware that their world had less than 1 day to live. The first warning came when the home defense fleet began taking positions in orbit. Thel noticed military activity through her lab windows. Hundreds of warships filled the sky, blocking out stars. "What is happening?" her research assistant asked. Thel activated public news feeds. The headlines made her throat sacs constrict with fear. "Human attack imminent. All citizens remain calm and trust in military superiority." "Humans," her assistant said dismissively. "They barely have space travel. The hegemony could crush them easily." But over the next hours, more news came. Border stations had fallen. Council forces throughout outer territories were being destroyed. Human ships, thousands of them, were heading toward Gentar Prime. By evening, Thel could see concern spreading through the population. Streets crowded with Gentar staring at the sky, watching military ships maneuver. Government broadcasts insisted everything was under control, that the home defense fleet was unbeatable, that humans would be destroyed before reaching orbit. Thel did not believe it. She had studied human scientific publications over the years. Humans were young and aggressive, but they were not stupid. They would not attack the most defended world in the galaxy without a plan. She left work early and went to collect her offspring from the academy. Teachers tried to assure her the children were safe. Thel remembered reading about a human colony called Delta 7, where children had been killed in their school. She took her offspring home. That night, the human fleet arrived. Fleet Commander Vresh watched from her flagship as human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. She had 2,000 warships, the finest vessels the hegemony had built. Each ship carried weapons capable of destroying cities. Their shields could withstand antimatter weapons. Their crews had trained for decades. The human fleet numbered 400 capital ships and 3,000 smaller vessels. They were outnumbered, outgunned, facing the most powerful military force in the galaxy on its home ground. They attacked anyway. The battle began at extreme range. The Gentar fleet launched missile salvos that darkened space. Human point defense systems intercepted most, but dozens of human ships died in the first exchange. Gentar crews cheered. The humans were dying. Victory seemed certain. Then human weapons hit. The first quantum disruption torpedoes struck a Gentar battlecruiser. The crew had time to realize something was wrong before molecular bonds holding their ship together simply stopped working. The battlecruiser did not explode. It disintegrated, falling apart into component atoms. 1,500 Gentar died without understanding what killed them. "What was that?" Vresh demanded. "What kind of weapon?" More hits. More ships disintegrating. The Gentar defense fleet began to falter. Their shields were useless against weapons that operated on quantum levels. Their armor meant nothing when matter's basic structure was being disrupted. Human swarm ships moved in, just like at border stations. They died by hundreds, but there were always more. For every Gentar warship destroyed, humans lost 10 vessels. But humans had built their fleet to be expendable. The Gentar had not. On the surface, Thel held her offspring close as the sky lit with explosions. The battle in orbit was visible through atmosphere. Thousands of ships, millions of weapons, all focused on mutual destruction. The home defense fleet was dying. Everyone could see it. "Why are they doing this?" her offspring asked, voices trembling. "What did we do?" Thel thought of Delta 7. 15,000 humans, killed without mercy. She had read reports, seen footage that human survivors had broadcast. She had felt disgust at her government's actions. But she had done nothing. None of them had done anything. Now, humans were here, and they were not distinguishing between guilty and innocent. The battle lasted 4 hours. At the end, the Gentar home defense fleet was destroyed. 2,000 warships gone. The human fleet had lost over half its ships, but more than 200 capital vessels remained, along with 1,000 swarm ships. And they began descending toward the planet. Vresh floated in wreckage of her flagship, her life support suit keeping her alive in vacuum. She could see human ships moving into position around Gentar Prime. They were not taking occupation positions. They were forming a bombardment grid. She used her suit's emergency transmitter to send one final message to the Galactic Council. Defense fleet destroyed. Humans preparing planetary bombardment. May ancestors forgive us for what we brought upon our people. Then her suit's power died, and she drifted into darkness. On the Retribution, Elena Vasquez stood at her weapons console, hands shaking. The targeting computer showed 12 billion life signs on the planet below. Cities, schools, hospitals, homes, families, just like Delta 7. "All ships report ready for bombardment," the tactical officer announced. Captain Stone looked around the bridge. Every officer was tense, faces pale. They all knew what they were about to do. This was not war. This was genocide. "Captain Stone, we are receiving transmission from the Galactic Council," the communications officer said. "They are asking for negotiations. They say they will withdraw from all human territories, pay reparations, establish formal relations." "Send them the footage from Delta 7, Stone said quietly. "That is our only answer." The communications officer hesitated. "Sir, they are offering everything we asked for. We could end this war right now." Captain Stone activated his console and pulled up the file he watched every day for 6 months. The school on Delta 7, 300 children, Gentar soldiers firing on families trying to flee. "Do you see this?" he asked, voice rough. "They did this. They murdered children. They broadcast it as a warning to humanity. They wanted us afraid, to submit." He looked at his crew. "We are going to show them what happens when you terrorize humanity. We are going to make sure no species in this galaxy ever makes this mistake again. Fire all weapons." Elena pressed the firing button. She felt nothing. Her emotions had burned out during the journey from Delta 7 to this moment. She had become a machine, executing programming. The Retribution's main weapons fired. Atmospheric incinerators designed by Dr. Okonkwo specifically for this moment. The weapons entered atmosphere and detonated, releasing chemical cascades that ignited planetary oxygen. Firestorms swept across continents. The atmosphere itself became a weapon. Other ships fired crustal destabilizers. The weapons penetrated deep into the planet's mantle and detonated, triggering earthquakes above 10 on the Richter scale. Tectonic plates shattered. Volcanoes erupted across the globe. The ground itself became death. More ships fired biological weapons, tailored viruses targeting Gentar DNA specifically, spreading through atmosphere at supersonic speeds. The viruses killed quickly, within minutes, but those minutes were agony. The bombardment lasted 14 hours. The human fleet fired every weapon they brought, systematically destroying Gentar Prime's capacity to sustain life. When they finished, the planet was a burning hell, its atmosphere toxic, its surface racked by tectonic instability, its population dead or dying. 12 billion Gentar. Gone. On the surface, in a deep emergency bunker beneath Kreshvar, scientist Thel held her offspring as the shelter shook from impacts above. The bunker was built to withstand anything. It had air recyclers, food synthesizers, radiation shielding. They could survive down here for years if necessary, but human weapons found the bunker anyway. Crustal destabilizers cracked the planet's crust above them. Magma poured in. Thel had time to hold her offspring close, to whisper that she loved them, before heat consumed them all. Across the planet, in thousands of similar bunkers, millions of Gentar died the same way. Humans had been thorough. They had brought enough weapons to kill a planet, and they used them all. When bombardment ended, Captain Stone ordered the fleet to maintain position in orbit. They would stay 6 more hours, monitoring, ensuring nothing on the surface survived. Automated drones swept the planet, searching for life signs. When they found survivors in hardened shelters, they transmitted coordinates to the fleet, and more weapons fell from sky. No mercy, no prisoners, no survivors. Elena stood at her console and cried. She cried for children on Delta 7. She cried for billions who just died on Gentar Prime. She cried for her own soul, which felt like it had died somewhere during the past 6 months. "Commander Vasquez," Captain Stone said gently. "Are you all right?" "No," Elena said. "But I will be fine, later, after." After what? She did not say. She did not know. The human fleet broadcast the entire bombardment on every Galactic Council frequency. They wanted everyone to see. They wanted the galaxy to understand what humanity was capable of when pushed to the edge. The message was simple. Admiral Chen Wu's face transmitted from his command center on Earth. His eyes were empty, his voice flat. "This is what happens when you attack humanity. We do not forgive. We do not forget. We do not show mercy to those who murder our children. Gentar Prime is gone. If any species ever attacks a human colony again, their homeworld will follow. This war is over. Accept our terms or join Gentar Prime in oblivion." The Galactic Council surrendered within the hour. The Galactic Council met one final time in the neutral station Harmony 7. 16 species sat in silence. The Gentar delegation seats remained empty. There was no Gentar delegation anymore. The species had scattered across colony worlds, leaderless, broken, their population reduced from 40 billion to less than 2 billion in a single day. President Okonkwo walked into the chamber with Admiral Chen Wu and security guards. She looked older than 6 months ago. The war had aged everyone, but her most of all. She carried the weight of 12 billion deaths on her shoulders. "Thank you for coming," the Pelthian ambassador said. His aquatic suit bubbled nervously. "We are here to discuss terms." "There are no discussions," President Okonkwo replied. Her voice was flat, emotionless. "There are only our terms. You will accept them, or we will continue this war until every council species shares Gentar Prime's fate." The representatives shifted uncomfortably. The threat was not empty. Earth's fleet had only used 40% of its forces to destroy Gentar Prime. Intelligence suggested humanity had built over 15,000 warships, with more being constructed daily. The Council's remaining forces numbered less than 8,000 ships, and morale was completely broken. "State your terms," the Vrel representative clicked. Admiral Chen Wu activated a holographic display. "First, all Galactic Council forces will withdraw from a 500 light-year exclusion zone around human territory. Any Council ship entering this zone will be destroyed without warning. Second, the Council will pay reparations equivalent to 1 trillion credits for the massacre at Delta 7. Third, the Council will formally recognize human sovereignty over all currently claimed human worlds and any future settlements. Fourth, the Council will establish a permanent diplomatic embassy on Earth and accept human ambassadors on Council worlds. Fifth, any act of aggression against humanity by any Council species will result in complete destruction of that species' homeworld. The terms were brutal, but nobody objected. The galaxy had seen what happened when you fought humanity. Better to accept defeat than extinction. We accept, the Pelthian ambassador said. Other delegates nodded agreement. Good, President Okonkwo said. One more thing. We will place monitoring stations throughout Council space. Automated platforms that will observe your military movements. Any species that begins military buildup beyond defensive needs will be warned once, only once. You are treating us like criminals, the Vrel representative protested. President Okonkwo's eyes were cold. You killed 15,000 of our people, including 300 children, and broadcast it as entertainment. You are fortunate we are letting you survive at all. The Council representatives had no answer. The treaty was signed within the hour. The war was over. Humanity had won. But victory felt hollow. On Earth, celebrations were quiet. Yes, humanity had survived. Yes, they had secured their future among the stars. But they had done so by committing the same atrocity inflicted on Delta 7, magnified 1,000 times. Elena Vasquez returned to Earth 3 weeks after the treaty was signed. She was given a medal for her service, promoted to captain, and offered command of one of the new dreadnoughts being built to patrol the exclusion zone. She refused it all. Instead, she requested a meeting with President Okonkwo. They met in the president's private office in Geneva. It was a simple room with windows overlooking the lake. Captain Vasquez, the president said, gesturing to a chair. I read your service record. You performed admirably. I helped murder 12 billion people, Elena said flatly. There is nothing admirable about that. President Okonkwo was quiet for a moment. No, there is not, but it was necessary. Was it? Elena leaned forward. They surrendered. The Council offered us everything we wanted. We could have stopped before the bombardment. We could have shown mercy. And they would have seen it as weakness, the president replied. Within a generation, maybe 2, they would have tried again. More colonies would have fallen. The cycle would have continued. So we broke the cycle by becoming monsters, Elena said. We are no better than the Gentar now. Worse, actually. They killed 15,000. We killed 12 billion. President Okonkwo stood and walked to the window. Do you know what I see? I see a world that will never be attacked again. I see children who will grow up safe. I see a future for humanity. She turned back. Yes, we paid a terrible price. Yes, we became monsters. But we survived. That is what matters. Is it? Elena asked. What are we now? What have we become? The president had no answer. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo sat in her laboratory beneath the Sahara Desert, looking at the weapons she had created. The atmospheric incinerators, the crustal destabilizers, the biological agents. Everyone had been used on Gentar Prime. Everyone had killed billions. She had complete research data in front of her, years of work, theoretical breakthroughs that would revolutionize physics and chemistry, discoveries that could advance human science by centuries. She deleted it all. Every file, every calculation, every schematic. She burned physical notes, destroyed prototypes, wiped backup servers. When she finished, the weapons existed only as ashes and memories. Her research team protested. This is irreplaceable data. You are destroying scientific progress. I am destroying the means to commit genocide, Dr. Okonkwo replied. I built these weapons because I thought humanity needed them to survive. I was right. We did need them. We used them. And now I am going to make sure nobody ever uses them again." She walked out of the laboratory and never returned. 3 days later, she was found dead in her apartment. She had taken her own life. The note she left was simple. "I saved humanity and damned my soul. I cannot live with what I have done." Admiral Chen Wu continued his duties for 3 months after the war ended. He oversaw construction of exclusion zone monitoring stations. He coordinated redeployment of human forces to defensive positions. He ensured humanity's military remained strong enough to deter future aggression. Then, quietly, he retired to a small house in the mountains of Tibet. He spent his days meditating, trying to find peace. He never did. His body was found 6 months later. He had walked into the snow and never come back. The note in his pocket read, "We won. We survived. But we lost ourselves. Future generations will judge whether the trade was worth it. I cannot." Humanity expanded into the galaxy unopposed. New colonies were established. Trade routes opened. Human technology advanced rapidly, incorporating knowledge from council species who now treated humanity with fear and respect. But every colony, no matter how distant, bore a memorial to Delta 7. A simple monument with 15,000 names engraved in stone. Beneath the names, a warning: remember the price of peace. Remember what we had to become. Remember we are capable of both great good and terrible evil. May we never forget the difference. On the remnants of Gentar Prime, automated beacons transmitted continuous warnings to approaching ships. This world was destroyed in retaliation for the massacre at Delta 7. It stands as a monument to the cost of aggression against humanity. Do not forget what happened here. The planet itself remained a burning hell. The atmosphere was toxic. The surface was racked by earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Nothing would live there for 10,000 years. 16 species of the Galactic Council learned to fear the name humanity. They taught their offspring about the dangers of provoking humans. They told stories about Delta 7 and Gentar Prime, about the cycle of violence that consumed billions. Some called humanity monsters, others called them necessary evils. A few brave voices called them victims who became their own tormentors. All were right. Elena Vasquez eventually accepted a position as instructor at Earth's military academy. She taught young officers about realities of war, about weight of command, about terrible decisions sometimes required. On the first day of every semester, she showed students footage from Delta 7, the children in the school, families trying to flee, systematic execution of civilians. Then she showed footage from Gentar Prime. The planet burning, billions dying. The same terror, the same screams magnified 1,000 times. "This is what we did," she told students. "We survived. We won. We ensured humanity's future among the stars. And we did it by becoming the very thing we fought against." She paused, looking at young faces. "Your generation will decide what kind of species we want to be. Will we be conquerors who rule through fear, or will we find a better way?" She did not tell them the answer. She did not have one herself. Years passed. Decades. The scars remained, but life continued. Human children were born who never knew a time when humanity was not a galactic power. They grew up in a galaxy where other species stepped aside when humans approached. But the older generation remembered. They remembered the price paid. They remembered 15,000 who died at Delta 7. They remembered 12 billion who died at Gentar Prime. They remembered what humanity became when pushed to the edge. And they wondered, late at night when ghosts came calling, whether survival had been worth the cost. On a distant colony, a teacher stood before children and told them the story. The children listened with wide eyes. "Why did we do it?" one child asked. "Why did we kill so many people?" The teacher thought for a long moment. "Because we were afraid, because we were angry, because we wanted to make sure it never happened again." Did it work? Yes, the teacher said. No species has attacked humanity since. We are safe now. We are feared throughout the galaxy. Is that good? The teacher looked at the stars. I do not know. That is something your generation will figure out. In the ruins of Gentar Prime, automated beacons continued their endless transmission. A warning, a memorial, a reminder that humanity answered violence with overwhelming violence, responded to massacre with extinction. The galaxy would never forget. Neither would humanity. And in silence between stars, the ghosts of 15,000 from Delta 7 and 12 billion from Gentar Prime waited for an answer to the question that would haunt humanity forever. Was it worth it?